Hi, guys. Welcome back to Murder in Retrograde. Today, we're bringing you a recent case that's caught a lot of attention in the press. And this story's been heard many times in Los Angeles, sadly. Two young women with their entire lives in front of them, taken by a narcissistic, sinister man or men, and men that are too often that get away with these heinous crimes committed against unsuspecting women like these two that we're going to tell you about today. So let's get into it.
I'm Brittany Sheffrin.
I'm Jenna Kaplan.
And this is Murder in Retrograde. Welcome back, everyone. So today we're going to talk about Hilda Cabrales-Arzola was a 26-year-old Mexican architect designer who studied at the University of Monterrey in San Pedro Garza Garcia in Mexico. According to an online employment page, Hilda got a scholarship to pursue her degree, which she completed cum laude. She was also the lead project manager at architecture and design company Atrio Interiors. According to her profile, she was attempting to relocate to Canada and has been learning how to code to expand her opportunities. Quote, "My main goal is to fully migrate to Canada and establish there. I love the country and the opportunities it offers. I'm a very versatile person who can easily adjust to new circumstances. I love to learn, and I'm open to learning all new kinds of skills." So, I mean, just like a tiny bit from her CV, and you can tell she's very bright, very driven, and had so much to do on this
generation
planet.
like boggles my mind because she's like, I'm just gonna learn how to code. It's like it would take
Amazing.
me the rest of my life to learn how to do something like that. It's incredible how this like younger generations are just picking up this stuff like nobody's business.
Yeah.
But her good friend, Christy Giles, was an aspiring actress and model. And at just 24 years old from Alabama, she was often seen posting on her social media about her travels and work to her 17,000 followers. She was married to a man named Jan and then Celiers, sorry.
Something like that.
And the pair, as in Christy and Hilda, attended a party at Soho House in LA where Hilda supposedly met a man and they planned to go out to another party in the Hollywood Hills.
That's basically any night you go out in LA. Well, not any night, but it's usually like Thursday nights or whatever. There's always parties in the hills afterwards. That's pretty typical. Christy's husband said that he knew the women left the Soho House party at around 4:45 a.m. as he read his wife's text messages from that night. They were supposed to be going to an official Soho warehouse after party, but ended up in a totally different location.
Sorry, 4:45 a.m. Like, I don't know how people do that. That's wild. Chillingly, Christy's last text messages were to Hilda, the girl who was with her in the same location, was presumably in the same location as her. And it was 5:30 a.m. And the text message read, quote, "Let's get out of here," with the wide-eyed emoji. So
there's actually one line in front of that before that text message where she says she wants to leave. And then one of them asks the other, "Do you want to do a line?" And I'm assuming cocaine,
Coke, yeah.
which is very typical in LA. And
Yeah.
then about 20 minutes goes by, and then the text message comes in, "Let's get out of here." And it's like the embarrassed emoji. So what does that mean to you, Jenna? They saw something scary, right?
I think they were something happened where they're like, we gotta go.
Yeah, it's kind of scary. It's just that's the last correspondence. To me, it sounds like somebody possibly overdosed because that had happened right after those text messages. Maybe somebody did harder drugs or brought out something crazy.
Or it could even just be a guy's giving them a weird vibe and they're like, okay, we gotta go. Like, time to leave.
There's so many possibilities. Whatever it was, the girls definitely wanted to get out of there. CCTV footage from the Culver City Hospital showed two men wearing all black with bandanas over their faces, driving a black Prius without license plates, dropping off a lifeless Christy, according to her family. Shortly after, the men dropped Hilda off at Kaiser Permanente in West LA. These are not very close to each other.
I was just going to say, so
I used to live in between them.
Yeah, I was going to say these girls were together as far as we know. And then something happens and then they end up in completely separate hospitals, both in very similar kind of circumstances.
And I can't help but notice that they're both allegedly not great hospitals. Like that, that Culver City Hospital does not have any trauma. That I've been in that hospital. It's archaic, and Kaiser is known for not being so great. So
we've been to an emergency room in this area, like in the LA area, and it was the worst experience of my life.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean,
it's like a third world country in some of those ERs.
Great. Yeah.
So shortly after Hilda was also dropped off at a hospital, heroin was discovered in Hilda's system after her admittance into the hospital on November 13th. Heroin was discovered in Hilda's system after her admittance into the hospital on November 13th. And Christy's husband, Jan, said that this drug is nothing that either of the girls would ever do, not voluntarily. He and his family members definitely suspected foul play.
Let me ask you, as like I don't know a lot about drugs. Heroin. No, I don't mean it like that. I don't mean it like that. I just really don't know. I'm asking an honest question. I don't mean that you do, but you are smarter than I am. And you watch Ozark. I feel like there's a lot of this stuff in there. I don't watch that show, but can heroin look like cocaine? Like, does it look similar, or like, do we know? Because I'm almost wondering if like they thought they were doing one thing and then that's how they ended up. You know what I'm just curious if it could.
I've never seen either other than in movies, and heroin is usually brown.
That's what I think. Same. Okay. Same. So movies.
Yeah.
Like
and Coke is white
or something. Okay.
But you could do, I mean, if somebody puts something in a syringe, you don't okay.
Yeah,
it could be both. But I don't know, because you can snort fentanyl, you can shoot it, you can smoke it. There's so many different things that you can do with these drugs, but I don't think you would mistake one for the other.
Okay, that's my question, I guess. Sorry, didn't
want
to imply.
Yeah, just for the record, I'm just a nosy Nelly, and I know everything. Never have I done any of those drugs.
So just a backstory. I know we're going totally sideways here, but Brittany is one of those people who, like, if I ask her a question, I'm sure she's going to hang up on this call later and go research it and find out the answer. So this is why I asked you everything, because you tend to research shit that like no one thinks about, and you have the answers to everything. Like, what was the red barns and the white barns and shit like that? Like, you come up with stuff that I'm like, so this is why I always ask, not implying anything. Just so we're clear.
I get it from my dad. We have to know everything. It's really difficult for me if somebody asks me something and I don't have the answer, and he's exactly the same. I think it's Irish, actually.
Funny enough, it actually brings out something in me that I hate, because I know that about you. I come to you for answers versus like trying to look it up sometimes, and I get so annoyed by people that do that. So that's eye-opening.
It doesn't bother me at all. It doesn't bother me. So horribly, Hilda died on November 24th after her family took her off life support. She was officially brain dead, according to the family. Just 5 days before her 27th birthday, she was gone. Hilda's father spoke out saying, "My girl was diagnosed brain dead yesterday, November 26th. We were already expecting it to be bad news, and we were trying to take it with a lot of strength." He continued, "I asked God to return Hilda to me in 100% good health, but if she was going to be left impaired, it is better for her to leave and go be by his side." According to her family members, Hilda's organs will be donated to 9 different people. "We're all devastated, but grateful that God let us have her with us for almost 27 years and allowed us to come here and say goodbye to her. I'm grateful that with her last breath, she will be able to give life to others, and that she will live on in the heart, eyes, lungs of someone else." I mean, it's so hard for me to read this. This man, I can't imagine the pain, but to be able to be hopeful and happy that other people will be gaining something from her is just
so much respect for people that can look at it in that light and be
so
thankful.
Empathic. Yeah. Think of other people when they're at their darkest hour.
Yeah. It's heartbreaking. And before it was clear what exactly had happened to the women, Christy's mother, Dusty, explained that Christy would have put up a fight. She says, "My daughter would have fought like hell. And from my understanding, from speaking to the emergency room doctor and nurse, they did not see any visible bruises, scratches, or any indication of an altercation. The only way that these men would have kept my daughter and Hilda for over 10 hours would be by giving them drugs, maybe tying them up. The girls were obviously not speaking out loud in front of these guys. They were texting each other. I believe they drugged them to keep them, and I believe they probably raped them. If it was an accidental overdose, why not call 911? Why do you wait 10 hours until she is dead to fling her on a sidewalk, remove your license plates, and obscure your face?" It's a great question. This always boggles me when we hear or watch any kind of thing where people panic and do stupid things. Call 911.
Yeah.
Think about the person over yourself for once. But it always is people that don't know how to do that. So then a picture started to come together as the events of that night. So Chrissy's phone showed that she had texted Hilda around 5:30 to say, "Let's get out of here." And then Hilda replied, "Yes." And she said she called it for an Uber. But after that, Christy did not read or respond to any more texts sent to her. I think her mom's right. I think that at some point, whether it was in a drink or a syringe or something, these girls were drugged to allegedly be taken advantage of, maybe. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, they're beautiful girls. Like, I could see that being the case here.
It happens all the time. I wonder if you can put those drugs in.
I have no idea.
Like if you can drink them, but
I know you're going to be an expert after the show, so we'll talk about it next show.
Totally. So authorities were scouring the women's social media posts, text messages, etc., and it looked as if they were closing in quickly on some suspects. They had discovered that Hilda and Christy met 3 men while they were at this warehouse party. Then, just a month after the girls went out that last night, 3 arrests were made. David Pierce, 39, Brant Osborne, 42, and Mike Onsbach, 47, were all arrested. Apparently, the girls continued their night at David Pierce's apartment on Olympic Boulevard after the party. And they can tell all of this from pings from cell phones because they were all texting and they were posting social media. Thank goodness, because we knew where they were and all of that. It's believed that both women were given drugs and overdosed at the residence of David Pierce in the city of Los Angeles. 3 suspects were identified and arrested with the assistance of the LAPD, FBI Fugitive Task Force, and Metropolitan Division. Based on the investigation, the LAPD is concerned that there could be other victims in our community who could have been drugged by one or more of these men. Police said that this is an ongoing investigation. So by all means, if you know anyone who had a night that they don't remember things, it breaks my heart that women are hard on themselves and think I drank too much or something like that. This stuff happens all the time. It happens to very smart women, and there's nothing you can do when you're incapacitated. So it's so predatory. There's no way for you to fight back. It's reprehensible. So who were these guys, and could they have done anything? Could they have had anything to do with the girls being dumped like trash at 2 different hospitals?
I mean, allegedly, yes. But first, let's cover David Pierce. So here's what we know about him. He's an actor, wannabe director, and he's been photographed at events with many stars like Ron Jeremy, great company to be in, who last year was charged with over 30 counts of sexual assault. So if the saying of like, you are the company you keep, that's not great for you. Pierce, who was booked on suspicion of manslaughter, has remained behind bars since his arrest on December 15th by the LAPD's West Bureau, that the jail records show. And he is also charged with sexually assaulting 4 women in alleged attacks dating back as far as 2010, and is in jail. And he's got a $3.4 million bail. So it's not this guy's allegedly not his first rodeo in this kind of scenario, which is disgusting. Superior Court Judge Victoria B. Wilson ordered David Pierce to return to a downtown Los Angeles courtroom for arraignment on January 12th on 2 counts each of forcible rape and 1 count each of rape under an unconscious or asleep person and sexual penetration by a foreign object stemming from alleged attacks on August 2010, February 2019, February 2020, and October 2020. And then, like I said, $3.4 million bail. And prosecutors have asked for further investigation into the November 13th death of Christy Giles and the subsequent death of Hilda. The spokesperson for the LAPD's attorney office says that that's currently an ongoing investigation, so I can't say too much about that, but the investigation is absolutely still ongoing. So there's 2 more, but he seems to be taking the brunt of everything that's going on.
And as for the other 2 suspects, prosecutors have asked for further investigation. Both Brian Onspach, 47, and Brant Osborne, 42, were booked on suspicion of being an accessory to manslaughter. Quote, "We have a good faith belief that there may be other victims, but again, based on the ongoing investigation of this case, I can't comment as to whether there are, in fact, additional victims at this point," DA Catherine Mariano told reporters outside the courtroom after Pierce's second court appearance in this case.
But not to interrupt, but like there's clearly other victims if they're holding him on all these other counts. You know what I mean? Like those didn't come from this. So
oh no, they're saying in addition. They're saying
in
like
addition to that.
These are the ones we know about. And because we know about so many, we know there's got to be more.
Got it. That makes way more sense.
Because there are so many people that don't report it. There's so many women that think like, oh, I drank too much or I shouldn't have done this. And
or something nefarious too. Like they're not going to do anything or I'm going to get in more, there's so much backlash, unfortunately, for victims of any kind of sexual assault or abuse and needs to get better because people don't speak out.
Yeah. Brant Osborne was arrested Wednesday, December 15th, and LA cops nabbed Osborne on the NCIS Los Angeles set shooting near the corner of Hollywood Boulevard and Vine in Hollywood. So he was still working. According to actors Alexandra Croteau and David Murrieta Jr., both 35, Osborne had divulged to them while on a shoot in November about partying with women and later dumping their bodies.
Which is,
quote,
sorry to interrupt. That alone, you should not be allowed out of jail. Like you just admitted and bragged about something so terrible. It's so gross. Sorry.
It's beyond the fact that you could do that. And then you think it's okay to talk about it. He said, I have had the craziest weekend of my life. He told me how they'd partied. The 2 girls came back to their place and the girls had had a bunch of drugs. Murrieta said Osborne told them he left his apartment to get a COVID-19 test for the commercial shoot that he was going to. And when he returned, his roommate informed him that Giles was dead. He checked her pulse, freaked out, decided not to call 911, and then they decided what to do with the body. This is Murrieta still telling this to the Post. Then they didn't know what to do. They didn't want to call 911 and get in trouble, so they decided to drive and drop her body at Culver City Hospital. Quote, he was like, we dropped the first girl off. We came back to our place and then checked the second girl's pulse and it was very faint. So they tried to decide what to do with the second girl, got her in the car and decided to drop her off at a second hospital so they didn't get caught.
Call 911, you fucking idiots.
It's incomprehensible to experience this, to do this to 2 human beings and then to tell people, thank God they're stupid. But it's just, and I guess that to me is like sociopathic. Like, oh yeah, you think it's okay to talk about this stuff? This guy's been doing this. One of the cases was 2010, over a decade. He's been getting away with this. It makes me so angry. These douchebag LA predators.
And when your first thought is like, what are we gonna do with the body? It's like you're automatically just thinking about yourself. You have no care for any other it's so gross.
Full on narcissist.
Yes. So as for the third man, Mike Ansbach, he is a native New Yorker and has worked as a camera operator on TV shows such as Vanderpump Rules, Punk, and The Amazing Race. So they're all in entertainment in one capacity or another, which is scary because that means they have so much access to young, vulnerable women. And not to be, but like, especially if you're not from here and if you're at the club and you're meeting people and like, oh, all these guys are in TV and they're famous or whatever. It's very alluring and like can put a little bit of sparkle where and like you're not necessarily looking at the red flags, I feel like, because you're like, you know.
I have a perfect example. I was in my 20s in LA with my coworker and we're dancing next to this guy and we're having so much fun. And then we looked up and I was like, we were dancing with Suge Knight, totally dancing with Suge Knight. And I looked at my friend and she looked at me and we danced to the other side. And I was like, that's a murderer. We were just dancing with a murderer. Like but everyone was like, oh, like running up to him. And I'm like, it is a lot of people will just disregard everything about a person if they have fame, if they have notoriety, if they have power, if they have looks. So many things are of value in that town that are just useless everywhere else in the world.
It's crazy and it's sad. And they obviously knew that and they used that. So
yeah.
So the latest in this case is that David Pierce's attorneys have asked the judge to reduce his $4 million bail and set him free. They said that their client is willing to wear a GPS ankle monitor, and that's so gracious of him.
Yeah.
His attorney has argued that the prosecutors have filed the old rape allegations against him in order to keep him in jail so they gather more information in these current allegations. The defense attorney...
Okay, so really quickly, I understand the point. Like if somebody's holding you on a traffic violation you didn't pay, so while they try to get more information, they're holding you on rape allegations.
Yeah.
It's not a small thing. Right. And it's multiple women over decades. So,
which is interesting. Like, how did they put all of that together? Like, I'm more curious how they connected him to all of these other cases so quickly. They must have had his DNA on file or something. I don't know.
I think maybe people came out when the story came out and told their stories, but it sounds like these were already charges.
Files,
like he had already, we'll have to look into that. I don't know. That's confusing to me too.
So his defense attorney, Jacob Glucksman, says, this case attracted media attention because of the very unfortunate death of two women who appear to have died of drug overdoses in or around November 2021. The descendants died after apparently being in contact with the defendant. The court should note, however, that Mr. Pierce is not charged with any of these offenses related to this unfortunate incident. The people appeared to have, quote, dusted off old files against Mr. Pierce and in turn filed very serious offenses against him that carry the possibility of life in prison in an effort to keep Mr. Pierce detained while they continue to investigate the deaths of these women. The defense does not argue that the people cannot do this. However, the bail should be commensurate to alleged offenses and not issues that at this point are pure speculation and media fodder. He goes on to say that Pierce would not be able to afford the $3.4 million bail as he works as a freelancer and lives paycheck to paycheck. And he also said that keeping his client in jail during COVID times is dangerous as he has pre-existing health conditions.
Oh my God. He's a murderer.
It's the reach. Like COVID is like the defense team's best thing, right? Because they're like, oh, we'll keep them out because they're at risk.
COVID has been convenient for people for quite some time. Anytime an excuse is needed, COVID just slips right in.
Yeah. And the other two suspects were both released after making $100,000 bail. So they're out just kind of waiting. And then David Pierce is going to be presenting his motion in court soon. And so once more comes out, we'll definitely going to update you guys because it does seem like police are still trying to get, their I's dotted and T's crossed before they move forward with all of these guys. It definitely sounds like David Pierce allegedly did the majority of all the crime happening. But I don't know.
The fact that these other two guys can pay $100,000 bail, I know that the bail ties you and you lose that money if you don't, like all that, whatever. They were accessories to murder.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just walking out on the street and
terrifying. Because who's to say they're not going to go to a club and do it again? And maybe they've learned from this and they know to hide the body instead. You know what excuse me, but you know what I mean?
They feel like they're already going to be caught. Why don't I do it again?
It's terrifying.
These poor girls.
Protect yourselves.
There are GoFundMes for both girls in this case. We will link to them and keep you abreast of everything that happens in this case because it's just wild. And I can't wait to come back on and say they're all in jail.
Oh, same. And it's kind of crazy because like you think of all the things that we were told, like, oh, you stay with your friends and you make sure you're always with someone. They did the things that, you know, would seemingly be like the safe choice. Like, yeah, I'm going to go hang out with these guys, make sure you're together. And then it all just went so wrong. And it breaks my heart because it could literally happen to anyone. And it's just scary.
Yeah, because we were those girls that were like, we'll be fine. We have our friends, but you never know what situation you're going to get into. And that's why it's so important for girls to have like some sort of weapon on them or I don't know. It's like, how could this have been prevented? Sometimes it couldn't, you know, if somebody injected them or did this without them knowing, I don't know how they could have saved themselves.
And it sounds like too, that they were on their way out. And then I bet you like those drugs hit their system shortly after she went to go order the Uber. And that's like that minutes that things went south so quickly. And
that's such a sad thing. The Uber came and it waited and it drove off. Not that the Uber could have done anything, but
it's like
they were that close.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was going to say. It was like so close, but not close enough. So I don't know. I hope, like you said, I hope we come back and there's news that these assholes are going to be held accountable.
Yeah, agreed.
So until next time, follow us on all of our social media at Murder in Retrograde. Come chat with us, review us. We've got podcasts, we've got the YouTube. Come follow, share, all the good stuff.
So until next time, be safe.
And trust your gut.
Adios.
Bye.